Have you ever seen the movie Whatever Happened to Baby Jane? Bette Davis and Joan Crawford. It's an oldie. It's black and white. It's about two sisters who were both famous. One was a famous child actor. The other was a famous adult actor. And as an adult, the as adults, well, as children, the child actor carried the family, and as adults, the adult actor carried the sister. And on down and through the years, we're now there was a point, it was a career-ending move when a mysterious accident happened and one sister became crippled for life and the other one seemed to go a little bit funny in the head. She always kind of was. And then years and years later, the fit one has been caring for the crippled one since then, and the general understanding between them is that the fit one ran the crippled one down in a fit of angst one night. And I can't tell you the upshot of it because if you haven't seen it, you'll want to know. It's definitely a spoiler. You know, it takes a few twists you don't expect, and that's what keeps it fun and interesting. But the thing about it that struck me as more interesting, because at the time seems like it was mostly phrased as some sort of a mystery between two types of people, or I don't know. But I mean, as a child, Baby Jane is clearly a spoiled brat. I mean, they take pains to show you that she's spoiled and that her little sister resents it. And then as they grow up, the tables are turned. The little sister's the successful one, and the spoiled one is now just failing utterly at everything. And the successful one doesn't rub her nose in it, is unfailingly sweet about it, or so you would seem, because that isn't really depicted. And I remember thinking, but why does Joan Crawford seem to me like the baddie in this scene? And I realized it's because of the dynamics between those two sisters. I mean, in the first place, father was a narcissist. Okay, this is a really common, non-scientific, non-medical, non-psychological term. It is not an approved term. It is not something you could be diagnosed with. Let's get that straight. Narcissistic sociopath is a public domain term, not in the DSM of any number. It probably will wind up in there. It's generally people like that, if they go in for diagnosis and they don't, because you have to have a problem, you have to perceive a problem before you can treat the problem. And they don't perceive a problem. I mean, it's working for them. It's possible it'll get in. Most of the time they wind up with something like borderline personality disorder because they're so severe that the abuse they've inflicted on those around them has come to light. But for the most part, these are just the other side of humanity running around being more assertive, more aggressive, and more selfish. And finding loopholes and cheating and testing the security systems. I guess they're out there. So in Baby Jane, the father was clearly that sort of. He played the stage mother, except it was stage father. Probably because in those days it would have been much more common for it to be a father. Women didn't have the same power then. They weren't always welcome in the office. Even if the woman was the driving factor, the father was the one who would have had to do the negotiating anyway, because men did business and women minded the children. And so mother in this one is depicted as pretty much a fainting violet. They don't actually show any physical abuse, but you get the impression that probably does happen too. So we get these two women growing up with these two incredible tales. And as they move through the movie, it's pretty clear that Baby Jane is really nasty to Joan, to Blanche, and that Blanche is very polite and very mannerly, but has a certain sort of schadenfreude whenever she sees her sister in trouble, and constantly tries to get her sister in trouble by trying to reach out for help. Now, Baby Jane in the movie is doing some pretty rude things, it seems, or begins to. We don't know who started out being rude, actually. We really don't. We know that Baby Jane was rude as a child and that she's rude now, but we don't know about in the intervening years what the personalities were like or what was going on. Because we're brought in at the point when Baby Jane starts doing overtly rude things. And all in all, I mean, it's a tale of murder, mayhem, mystery, and whodunits and what the heck actually happened and whatever happened to Baby Jane. But I think it was a really interesting tale of narcissism and the effect it has on people, because both of them turned out to be narcissists. Both of them turned out to be self-serving, non-ethics, like ethics-less, amoral people who just really didn't care about the other one's feelings. In both of them. And it was a real sort of a dynamic too, though, because there was all this jealousy going on between them. There was the jealousy between here and there, and there was the jealousy between there and back to here again, and there was all of these dynamics going on, and this one's got it well, and that one's got it badly, and now this one's well, and now that one's badly, and now this one's blah, 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 blah. You know, that the ups and downs of life's fortunes was taken as a weigh scale rather than, thank God we're not both having a downtime at the same time because we can support each other moment, which you would expect a loving family to feel. Not competitive or you're doing better than me, but thank God one of us is doing well so that both of us can thrive. I didn't have that dynamic in my family either. Each his own. Truly, them that's got shall get, and them that's not shall lose, and to each his own, and I am not my brother's keeper, and hey, if you can't cut it, you don't deserve to be happy. And yes, I've been told that to my face by a relative. Yeah, say no more. I have been told that I can't afford to be happy. There's a whole world of people like that out there, and they're hard to be around because you either play that game, which unfortunately I don't have I'm missing the mindfuckery app. Pardon my language, but there isn't a better word for it. It just isn't. And I don't believe for a minute that there's a child out there watching who doesn't already know this word. And anyways, why are children watching this boring old person? So really, I don't think that there's, I think that that's something you have to have the facility to do. Otherwise, you're just going to be a falling victim constantly, as I have done in my life. And it's been 50 years of falling victim to people who really just want to play with your head. And there's just no bigger way to put it. But you know, it's an interesting thing because when they do these things to you, they say things like, I realize it's not a nice thing to say, but I don't want you to get too big an ego. Or, I just want you to understand reality. Or, you know, I don't want you to get your hopes up. That's a big one. You know, like they're rescuing you from a bigger letdown than you would have had by giving you a small letdown now. They're training you so that you'll be a better human being. They're communicating with you so that you can be a better human being. Every single freaking time these people drag you down and leave you panting on the floor wondering if you deserve to live, they do it under the guise of somehow doing you a favor. Doing society a favor. You know, I am improving the world and you all at once with my nasty, nasty, nasty comments. But I didn't say them nasty. I said I used nice words. It was all dog whistles. The nasty part, you're the only person who heard it, okay? Oh, narcissists. We have to live with them, and I don't know how. Sometimes we seem to become one. They want us to be. They want us to emulate them. You see, when you behave the way that someone who doesn't have strong self-control behaves, someone who doesn't have a lot of self-respect, when you behave like they behave, you're emulating them, you're copying them, you're echoing them, you're supporting their behavior. And so they like it when you are brought into that state of mind, whether it's the endless, stupid Game of Thrones head trips, or it's the emotional outbursts, or it's the saying unkind things to snap someone's attention. There's a huge variety of ways that we can find ourselves behaving and saying to ourselves, this isn't me and this isn't who I want to be, and what do I do? And I'm in a situation like that where I'm getting sick and tired of employing tactics that aren't part of my nature in order to get through to someone who has a different nature. Because you need to do that. You need to, if you want to talk to street youth, you don't use the same language you use to a pastor in church. You simply don't. The pastor might, but your average person is going to have, if you don't talk in their dialect, then you're talking down to them. And it isn't really about what you're saying, it's how you're saying it. And they'll say that to you without even understanding what they're trying to explain. It's like it's not what you say, it's how you're saying it. And what they mean is you're not swearing enough. You're using words that they don't use. You're not using words they do use. Learn the vocabulary if you want to speak to any group of people. And that includes the narcissists. And so to that degree, using their methods is the way to communicate with and getting along with them. And if you don't have it, as I say, then you're in a pickle. And I think that's the autism for me. But I think there's also a certain amount of, it's exhausting. We don't want, a resentment at being asked to spend that energy. And the funny thing is, that's exactly what they express at us when we want a little bit of thoughtfulness in our direction. They don't want to spend the energy. So there's definitely a great deal of that going on, the resentment towards other people for requiring from us. And from what I can see, that requiring from us isn't any specific category. We resent it whether they require our time, our energy, our emotion, our money, our resources, our muscle, our sweat, our love, anything. We seem to have difficulty extending ourselves to each other that way without having some sort of rule-bound tradition to tell us we must. You have to because he's my brother, that kind of thing. And the people who do, in fact, give freely are becoming, they just get depleted. Unless they fill each other up, they don't get filled up. And so they start isolating themselves to each other and leaving the rest of the world floundering because we just don't want to give our energy. And I do give my energy. It's, I think, part of what's been making me so flippin' sick. I haven't been looking after me. I've been putting energy into me. And I don't really know how to put energy into me, to tell you the truth. But I'm taking more time to stand up for me, and I'm taking more time to rest, and I'm taking more time to give myself permission to be whatever it is now it's being. And those are ways to stand up for me, those ways to be there for me, I guess, to give myself energy back. And I guess that's about all I can do. But I don't want to live in a world where we don't have the energy for each other. I don't want to live in a world where there's a category of people, any category of people, who are not worthy of love. I really don't. Your behavior may be unworthy, but you shouldn't be. None of us should ever feel like the person inside of us isn't worthy. We should be able to understand that there's a separation between the way we feel and what we choose to do about it. That we are not to be ashamed of our feelings, only our choices. And that counts for narcissists. And if we all held ourselves to that metric, to where we were required to be thoughtful about our behaviors, and we were recognized when we were thoughtful about it, and we were shut down quickly when we weren't, but not in a way that made us feel like we couldn't do better. Like somehow can't or won't, as opposed to didn't get it right this time. When you're inventing something or you're building something or you're learning something, you don't expect to get it right. You pick up an instrument to play it. You don't expect Chopin to come out underneath your fingers. You just don't. Why do we expect it from each other? Why aren't we teaching? Why aren't we... It's okay. We'll do it again. And I think even with the narcissists, and I know they're not trying as hard as the rest of us. I get that. But are we sure? Are we sure they're not trying in their own goofy way? And just like a handicapped person, not meeting that mark. Just in their own way, they're handicapped. In their own way, we need to find a place where they shine. A place where I shine. A place where you shine. I see a lot of changes possible. I really hope for the world. I hope that this long rest creates a shakeup where people move from careers that don't make them shine to careers that do make them shine, even if sometimes those aren't actually things we think of as careers. But it's going to take a shakeup in the economic system to pull it off. As long as we're only worth what our monetary status, we're not getting anywhere. I think we've shown, though, that we do care more than that as a people. The psychopaths got to get the hang of it, but the human race as a whole seems to pretty much think that each of us is worth giving a damn about. Good luck out there.